Hey guys, Nathan here. Today I'm going to be covering how to utilize the depth map in Reflex to get some really nice depth of field on your screenshots. We're going to start off by capturing a screenshot with the depth map in Reflex, and then we're going to take it into either After Effects or Photoshop, your choice, to post-process it. So let's get right into it. First off, you're going to want to hide your HUD. You're not going to want your HUD showing in your screenshots, so let's hide that temporarily. You can do that with the command cl_show_HUD space 0. It looks like our crosshair is still showing up, so let's go into the widgets menu and disable that. Alright, looking much better. Now we can hop into Spectator to get rid of our weapon model. So now that we have our HUD and weapon model disabled, we can get on to taking our screenshot. You're going to want to bind a key to the screenshotWithDepth command, so let's go ahead and do that. You can do that in the console by typing bind, a key, screenshotWithDepth. With our screenshot key set up, I'm going to have to fill you guys in on a couple little things about taking screenshots with depth in Reflex. The first thing is that some things don't show up in the Reflex depth map. The big ones to look out for are the carnage, sparks, blood, and explosions, but also include armor, health, and weapon pickups. You're going to want to stray away from making these the primary focus of your screenshots. The second thing you're going to need to do before you start taking screenshots is to set your depth export scale. You can find this with the command r_depth_export_scale. This number should usually be between 4 and 32 and depends on your scene. The longer your scene is on the z-axis in relation to the camera, the higher the number is going to need to be. This is so that we can get all the information about your scene captured in that depth map. On screen you can see depth maps captured with scales ranging between 4 and 32. At 4 you can see we capture almost none of the background. It looks like anything above the default of 16 will work just fine for us. Now that we figured out our depth export scale, we can finally take our screenshot. I prefer screenshots with much lower FOV than usual, usually between 35 and 70. I think for this one, I'm going to go around 45. Alright, so now we can compose our shot and take the picture. This looks pretty good. And you saw the game hitch there for a second and freeze. That was actually capturing the screenshot, and if we look in our console, we can see that it took both a screenshot and a screenshot depth. We can retrieve those screenshots by going into the screenshots folder in the Reflex directory. My preference for post-processing my photos with depth of field is in After Effects using the Frishluft plugin Lens Care, which has a depth of field plugin which is really easy to use and I find produces really nice results. Now, not everyone's going to have this plugin, and that's fine. If you want the best results, I recommend it, but we can also do this with the camera lens blur plugin that comes with After Effects. Now you can see I set my composition up with my screenshot down here, my depth screenshot right here, hidden, and we're just going to create a new adjustment layer. We'll apply our Frishluft depth of field plugin onto that. We'll just select our depth layer. Let's make sure we turn our radius up. You should start to see results right now. And then we'll select our depth point and we'll click it right on this guy. It's not too noticeable, but you can see in the background we're getting some depth of field. We'll turn this up. Usually the higher resolution your image is, the higher you have to crank it. But you can see we're getting some pretty nice depth of field. We have the foreground in focus. I'll focus on the background and you can see it. You guys can see what that looks like. Now if we want to achieve depth of field without using the Frishluft plugin, we can do that. We just set our composition up with our depth layer on top. Let's hide that. And then we'll grab the camera lens blur effect. We'll apply that right to our screenshot layer. You can see it instantly has the radius turned up. We'll turn that up a little bit more. Now all we have to do is focus it. Now maybe it's just my inexperience, but I found it very difficult to focus this effect compared to the Frishluft plugin, and I'm also not able to get nearly as nice results as I was with the Frishluft plugin. Getting a lot of color fringing around the edges of the robot that I can't seem to get rid of. I think it might have to do with the depth map handling anti-aliasing incorrectly in Reflex, but Frishluft seems to handle it just fine, so I personally think I'm going to stick with that method. So the third way to get depth of field on your screenshots is in Photoshop. I'll be working in the Essentials layout so that it's easy to follow along with. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab your screenshots and bring them both in here. You're going to want to select all your depth map with Control A and copy it. You're going to come over into your screenshot, select the background layer, create a layer mask with this button down here on the bottom right, and then you're going to want to alt click on your layer mask. You'll see it go completely white, and then all you have to do is do Control V and paste it in. Click on your layer mask again and you can see that your image has become almost completely transparent. If we select our layer mask, we can drag the density up here all the way down. You can see your image reappears. We'll click on our layer now, go up to Filter, Blur, Lens Blur. You're going to want to set the source to layer mask. We can bring the radius up a bit. And then we can just click on our robot to focus it. We can zoom into 100% and you can see that we have some really nice background blur. Photoshop doesn't handle foreground blur so well, but if all you'd like is background blur, then it'll work just fine. Alright guys, I think that just about wraps up this one. I hope you got something out of this tutorial, found it useful, and I hope to see you in the next one.